Hey warriors, welcome back to the channel. You are not struggling because you lack talent. You are struggling because you still seek permission. You hesitate, shrink, soften your voice, all because you fear being disliked. Today, we solve that problem. Today, we make you dangerous. The need to be liked is one of the most subtle forms of weakness a person can possess, and yet it doesn't feel like weakness at all. It feels polite, cooperative, socially intelligent. It feels like the right thing to do. But this is precisely why it's dangerous. Weakness that disguises itself as virtue is the type that quietly drains your power without you noticing. And while you may believe you're simply being kind or avoiding conflict, what you're really doing is placing your self-worth into the hands of other people, hoping they will protect it. They won't. And Machiavelli understood this centuries before modern psychology gave it a name. From the moment you wake up, you begin negotiating with the world. How to speak, how to stand, how to respond, what to reveal, what to hide. Every move is softened, adjusted, trimmed down to fit an expectation you never agreed to, but accepted out of habit. You think you're being thoughtful, you think you're being considerate. But if you look closely, you'll see something else at work: fear. Fear that someone might reject you, fear that someone might misjudge you, fear that someone might distance themselves from you. And because of that fear, you hand them the ability to shape your actions. The need to be liked becomes the invisible puppeteer, quietly pulling the strings of your every decision. This desire for approval didn't appear out of nowhere. You were trained into it. Since childhood, acceptance was the condition for survival. Teachers rewarded obedience, parents rewarded compliance, friends rewarded similarity. You learned that the quickest path to comfort was to be agreeable, pleasant, likable. But comfort is not power. And the world you live in now requires something very different. A person who needs constant approval cannot lead. They cannot negotiate. They cannot stand firm. They cannot create boundaries. Why? Because every boundary risks upsetting someone, and upsetting someone threatens the very thing they depend on, being liked. Machiavelli would call this a fatal flaw, not because kindness is wrong, but because dependency is dangerous. When you rely on others for emotional validation, you give up control of your emotional stability. When you need their approval, they own your direction. And the worst part is, most people do not even realize this transfer of power is happening. They go through life believing they're making their own choices, when in truth their choices are shaped by who they are afraid to disappoint. And so you become predictable. Not in the way a strong, disciplined person is predictable, but in the way a submissive person is predictable. People learn quickly what you will and will not challenge. They learn what they can get away with. They learn that you will bend if they push hard enough, because they know you value harmony more than self-respect. And once they know this, you stop being a person. You become a tool, something to be used when convenient, dismissed when not. This is how quiet weakness destroys lives, not through dramatic failures, but through small concessions repeated over years. Concessions you justify to yourself because you don't want to be the difficult one, the harsh one, the cold one. You become addicted to being seen as good, even when it costs you your dignity. You trade authenticity for approval, and then wonder why you feel hollow. You become agreeable on the outside and resentful on the inside. And if you keep going down this road, you eventually lose the ability to recognize what you want, because you've spent your entire life adjusting yourself to what everyone else wants. The tragedy is that people often mistake this for kindness, but kindness built on fear is not kindness, it is self-erasure. It is the slow erosion of self-respect. It is pretending to care about others when, in truth, you're terrified of being disliked. Real strength, real compassion, real leadership, they all come from a person who is whole within themselves, who does not need approval to validate their existence. A person who can give without trying to be worshipped, who can help without needing to be praised, who can stand firm even when it makes others uncomfortable. When you are free from the need to be liked, something remarkable happens. Your voice becomes clearer, your choices become sharper, your presence becomes heavier. People begin to notice that you cannot be swayed by flattery and cannot be manipulated by disapproval. They begin to recognize the rarest form of power, emotional independence. And ironically, the less you need to be liked, the more people start respecting you, following you, even admiring you, not because you chased their approval, but because you no longer required it. Indifference is not the absence of emotion, it is the mastery of it. Most people hear the word and imagine coldness, detachment, and uncaring heart. But in the world of power, indifference means something entirely different. It means you are no longer controlled by the volatility of other people's opinions. It means you remain steady when others are shaken, calm when others are, triggered and calculated when others are impulsive. And this stability, this unshakable center, is what Machiavelli recognized as one of the greatest forms of strength a human can possess. People who lack indifference swing wildly between two extremes. Praise lifts them, criticism destroys them. Their emotions are dictated by whatever the world throws at them, and so the world learns it can manipulate them with ease, compliment them, and they soften, disapprove of them, and they panic. In this vulnerable state, they betray their own principles just to regain harmony. They make decisions not out of conviction, but out of fear. They are puppets to the crowd, controlled by threads they pretend not to see. Indifference cuts those threads. It gives you the rare ability to act from intention rather than reaction. When people praise you, you stay grounded. When they criticize you, you stay focused. When they doubt you, you remain unmoved. This inner neutrality allows you to see situations as they truly are, not through the fog of emotion or the intoxication of validation. And once you see clearly, you can act effectively. You become the strategist instead of the pawn. There is a psychological truth hidden in this. The more you respond emotionally to the world, the more the world begins to play with those emotions. But when you show that your internal state cannot be disturbed easily, people change how they interact with you. They approach you more carefully. They speak with more respect. They hesitate before making demands. Not because you are aggressive, but because your neutrality signals something powerful. You cannot be controlled. In a world where everyone is desperate for approval or terrified of judgment, the individual who remains indifferent becomes almost mythical. Others cannot predict you. They cannot manipulate you. They cannot guilt you into compliance. Indifference also gives you a profound advantage in conflict. Most people escalate arguments because they take offense quickly. They personalize everything. But when you are indifferent to their attacks, those attacks lose their force. You don't react. You don't crumble. You don't take the bait. And nothing frustrates a manipulator more than someone who refuses to give them emotional fuel. In your calmness, they expose their own instability. In your silence, they reveal their desperation. And without lifting a finger, you win the psychological battle simply by refusing to play the emotional game. This is why masters of influence remain composed. They know that power flows to the one who maintains control, not control over others, but control over themselves. When your emotions are governed from within, your actions become sharper. You stop over-explaining, you stop over-apologizing, you stop trying to fix every uncomfortable situation, you stop leaking energy through constant emotional reactions. Instead, you conserve your strength and direct it with precision. Indifference also creates discipline. When you stop caring about external validation, you become free to focus entirely on your mission. You stop chasing applause and start pursuing mastery. You stop worrying about being misunderstood and start concentrating on being effective. The noise of other people's opinions fades into the background, and what rises to the surface is clarity. Clarity about your priorities, your values, your direction. But indifference is not natural. It must be trained. At first, your ego will fight it. You will feel the urge to defend yourself, to explain yourself, to prove yourself. You will feel the itch to seek approval because your mind has been conditioned to crave it. But the more you practice indifference, the stronger it becomes. You begin to detach from outcomes you cannot control. You begin to stop worrying about pleasing people who contribute nothing to your life. You begin to notice how much energy you once wasted on meaningless reactions. And there is another layer to this, an even deeper psychological shift. When you practice indifference, you begin to discover your true identity. Not the identity shaped by social pressure or expectations, but the identity that exists when no one is watching. You start making decisions that reflect who you are, not who the world wants you to be. You begin to trust yourself more than you trust the crowd. You become grounded in your own judgment, your own reasoning, your own instincts. This is why indifference feels dangerous to others. They sense that you are not looking for their approval, which means they cannot lure you with flattery or threaten you with disapproval. Your independence unsettles them. It forces them to confront their own lack of control. And in that discomfort, they subconsciously elevate you. They begin to treat you differently, with a cautious respect, because you are no longer one of them. You are not operating from emotional hunger. You are operating from inner abundance. Indifference transforms you from someone who reacts to life into someone who shapes it. Reputation is one of the few currencies in life that grows more powerful the less you beg for it. Most people spend their entire lives trying to be seen as good, kind, agreeable, likable. They tailor every word, every gesture, every smile to project an image that others will approve of. But what they do not realize is that this obsession with being liked destroys the very thing that actually matters: strategic reputation. Machiavelli understood this with ruthless clarity. He knew that the pursuit of emotional validation makes a person fragile, but the cultivation of reputation makes them formidable. Reputation is not about being loved. It is about being recognized as someone whose presence demands consideration. When you chase emotional validation, your sense of identity becomes fluid, constantly shifting depending on who's watching you. You act differently with friends, with colleagues, with strangers, because you're constantly adapting to what you think they want from you. You begin to shapeshift socially, not because you're strategic, but because you're afraid. Fear of disapproval makes you inconsistent. Fear of rejection makes you predictable. Fear of disappointing others makes you powerless. And once people sense this fear, they instinctively stop respecting you, even if they continue to like you. Reputation, however, is built on consistency, on principles, on a clear identity that does not melt under pressure. When your actions come from conviction rather than anxiety, the world starts to form a stable impression of you. They know what you stand for. They know what you will and will not tolerate. They know that your boundaries are firm, not negotiable, and that stability earns you something far more valuable than approval: trust. Not the warm emotional trust based on affection, but the strategic trust based on reliability. People rely on you because they know who you are, not because you change yourself to please them, but because you remain yourself even when it's inconvenient. There is a painful truth hidden inside this. Emotional validation is temporary. It must be constantly earned, constantly maintained, constantly fed. All it takes is one mistake, one misunderstanding, one moment of misalignment for people to withdraw their affection. But reputation, when built correctly, can survive storms. It can endure criticism. It can withstand gossip. Because a strong reputation is not built on your desire to be adored, it is built on your ability to command respect. Respect and approval are not the same. Approval says, "I like you because you please me." Respect says, "I value you because you are consistent, capable, and unshaken." Approval is emotional. Respect is structural. Approval makes people feel comfortable. Respect makes people think twice before crossing you. Approval invites people to use you. Respect forces them to consider the consequences. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved. Most people misunderstand the word feared. It doesn't mean terror. It means consequence. It means others understand that your boundaries are real, your actions are deliberate, your words are not empty. This type of reputation creates psychological space around you. People tread carefully. They behave better. They negotiate more seriously. They speak with more intention. Not because you demanded it, but because your reputation shapes their behavior automatically. When you stop chasing emotional validation, you begin making decisions not based on how they will make people feel, but on whether they strengthen your reputation or weaken it. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to cushion every statement. You stop apologizing for having standards. Instead, you start moving with purpose. Every action becomes part of the image you build. Every word reinforces who you are. Every boundary communicates your value without you having to brag about it. This transformation also changes the way you communicate. People who chase approval talk too much, justify too much, reveal too much. They leak insecurity in every sentence. But a person who values strategic reputation chooses their words with weight. They understand that silence can be more powerful than explanation. They realize that calmness communicates authority. They know that certainty, even when quietly expressed, creates an aura of influence. You don't need to Convince people of your worth when your reputation speaks for you. The irony is that once you stop obsessing over being liked, you actually become more admired, not because you seek admiration, but because people are naturally drawn to strength. They are drawn to individuals who stand firm when others bend. They are drawn to people who don't need constant reassurance. They are drawn to those whose self-worth does not rise and fall with public opinion. People sense when you are anchored within yourself, and that inner solidity creates an external gravitational pull. Your goal is not to be loved by everyone. Your goal is to be recognized as someone whose name carries weight, someone whose decisions are guided by principles, not insecurity, someone who cannot be emotionally bribed or manipulated, someone whose reputation precedes them, protects them, and amplifies their influence without them lifting a finger. Becoming dangerous does not mean becoming violent or cruel. It means becoming someone who cannot be manipulated. Someone whose sense of self is so grounded that others instinctively adjust their tone, their behavior, and their intentions when they stand in your presence. A dangerous person is not the loudest in the room, they're the one who doesn't flinch. They remain centered while everyone else reacts. They make decisions based on strategy, not insecurity. They carry themselves with an inner certainty that cannot be shaken by public opinion, emotional pressure, or social expectations. And this level of psychological independence is what most people never achieve because they spend their lives negotiating with their own fear. Danger begins with self-definition. Most people let the world define them. They adopt labels given by others. They adjust their identity based on approval. They bend, soften, shrink, edit themselves just to avoid offending or disappointing someone. This dependence makes them vulnerable. The person who needs acceptance has already surrendered leverage, but the person who defines themselves, clearly, confidently, and unapologetically, removes that leverage from everyone else. When you no longer look outward for identity, you become unpredictable to those who rely on your emotional compliance. A dangerous person is someone who can walk away, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Walk away from arguments that aren't worth the energy. Walk away from relationships that drain more than they give. Walk away from opportunities that require self-betrayal. When you can leave without crumbling, when your value is not tied to any one person, place, or outcome, you become powerful in a way that cannot be imitated. Most people stay trapped not because they lack options, but because they lack the courage to detach. Detachment is not coldness, it is inner freedom. This type of freedom changes your posture in life. You stop chasing, you stop pleading, you stop proving, you stop auditioning for acceptance. Instead, you move through the world with a quiet intensity. People feel it before they understand it. They sense that you do not need them, and this forces them to approach with respect instead of entitlement. You become someone who cannot be emotionally hijacked. Your reactions no longer belong to others, they belong to you. And in a society built on emotional triggers, this is a superpower. To become dangerous, you must develop the ability to tolerate discomfort. Emotional resilience is not built in ease. It's forged in moments where you choose principle over popularity. You learn to say no even when it creates tension. You learn to stand firm even when others push back. You learn to express your truth without diluting it for approval. Each time you withstand discomfort without bending, why? Our self-respect expands, and self-respect is the root of all real power. There is also an element of stillness in being dangerous. Not passivity, but stillness. A mind that is not constantly stirred by negativity, envy, gossip, or provocation becomes incredibly hard to manipulate. You stop reacting to every emotional spark around you. You stop escalating conflict. You stop internalizing other people's chaos. This calmness unnerves those who rely on emotional instability to gain control. When someone cannot get a rise out of you, they lose the ability to steer you. Your stillness becomes your shield. Another trait of a dangerous person is clarity of intention. Most people drift through life unsure of what they want. They don't know their boundaries, their goals, their standards. When you lack clarity, you become easy to influence. But when you are clear, crystal clear, your decisions become sharp. You know what aligns with you and what doesn't. You know who belongs in your life and who doesn't. You know what deserves your attention and what does not. This sharpness creates a sense of direction that others recognize immediately. They see that your choices are not random. They are calculated, deliberate, aligned. And then there is the final element, emotional self-sufficiency. When you become your own source of validation, praise loses its power and criticism loses its sting. You stop depending on external affirmation to feel whole. This terrifies people who are addicted to being needed. They cannot control someone who validates themselves. They cannot guilt-trip someone who draws self-worth from within. They cannot manipulate someone whose emotional survival does not depend on their approval. And this is what makes you dangerous. You operate from internal abundance, not external scarcity. Becoming dangerous is about constructing a foundation so solid that no rejection, no insult, no failure, and no loss can collapse it. It is about becoming unshakable from the inside out. You have now seen the architecture of true power laid bare. The need to be liked, the one weakness that quietly governs most lives, has been exposed for what it truly is, a chain disguised as comfort. And you've learned how indifference sharpens the mind, how reputation, not approval, builds lasting influence, and how becoming dangerous is nothing more than becoming sovereign over your own emotions, your own identity, your own direction. Everything you heard leads to one truth. Power is not something you chase, it's something you stop giving away. When you no longer beg for acceptance, people begin to adjust themselves around you. When you stop reacting, the world loses its grip on your emotions. When you cultivate a reputation built on consistency instead of insecurity, people listen when you speak. And when you become self-sufficient, emotionally untouchable, you enter a realm where few ever stand. This is not about becoming harsh. It is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming whole. A person who does not fracture under pressure. A person who leads themselves before expecting to lead others. A person who is no longer shaped by approval, but by purpose. The world respects the individual who cannot be owned. The world follows the one who does not need to follow the crowd. The world fears the person who cannot be manipulated. If you choose to apply what you've learned, if you dare to detach from the need to be liked, you will evolve into someone rare, someone powerful, someone dangerous in the most extraordinary sense of the word. Not dangerous to others, dangerous to the limitations that once controlled you.